Hello, welcome to Woodshed Reviews. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look back and reviewing Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
I had to say it like that.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the 1987 film directed by Gary Goddard, starring Dolph Lundgren as He-Man, Frank Langella as Skeletor, and amongst others, a pre-fame Courtney Cox as a new character to the series, Julie.
It's all right. It's all right. Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you.
This was your choice of film for this episode, so do you want to maybe elaborate?
Well, it's the 40th anniversary of He-Man.
Okay.
And I was a big fan growing up of the cartoon series and the range of action figures, which took the world by storm. It was hugely successful, and I was one of the suckers that wanted the toys. And here we go. Yes, here's some of the original figures here. All appeared in the film, exactly like this.
So when you say 40th anniversary, because He-Man, I did a bit of research into this, and I wasn't aware of this, but it was a toy line first before it was a cartoon.
Yeah, so they did it the other way around. So they made the toys first.
Was there a reason for that?
I believe, who did the Star Wars toys? Was it
Kenner.
Kenner, yeah. So Mattel lost out on that because they pitched to do the Star Wars toys and they lost out to Kenner.
Oh, okay.
And they wanted to get into the market. And there was a legend, I think it's been disproved, but there's still some debate about it. There was a film called Conan the Barbarian, and they started to design toys for Conan.
I see.
Have you heard about this one?
Vaguely. But because of the content of Conan, they were a little bit like the more adult theme of Conan.
So they scrapped that because they couldn't make toys for something that's for adults.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much truth there is in that.
Okay.
But they made a few figures and they created some mini comics to go over the figures. Some of the stories are really good, and but they contradict what comes later.
To the cartoon?
Yeah, so when the cartoon came out, the mini comics still came out and they complemented the cartoon a bit more, and they got the mythology sorted out. But they were quite fun to read. And
so you're a proper fan?
I am. I admit it. I enjoy the comics that they release now and again, because they're kind of aimed more for adults, for fans that grew up with the series. And there was a recent cartoon, I think executive produced by Kevin Smith. He did some of the story as well, which I found quite interesting. It was definitely aimed at those that were a fan of the original cartoon series. Yeah. So that was quite fun to watch.
Okay, so you're definitely coming at it from that angle of being quite a fan of it and knowing your lore. I'm coming at it from a completely different angle. I recall having a He-Man toy. I think it was the Battle Armor He-Man. Is that ringing a bell?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. I didn't have that one. So.
Oh, right, okay. I don't have it anymore, I'm afraid. But I remember watching the cartoon now and again, but it never stopped a game of football.
Right.
So but I did go and see this film that we're going to get around to talking about in 1987. I would have been 10 at the time. So I think I was interested enough to go and check this film out. I don't really remember much about what I thought about it, but I did, and rewatching it now, 35 years later.
Yeah.
I did remember a couple of things from it, so that's not a bad.
That's all right.
Not a bad start.
So I must have seen it first, either on TV or VHS, whatever came first. Well, of course, I was eagerly looking forward to the big screen adaptation of He-Man. This is the only live action film that's been made of He-Man so far. There's been threats to make another one, but it keeps getting postponed or stopped. Yeah. Why are you laughing?
Threats to a new He-Man film. That sounds like something I would say. You're a fan. You should be looking forward to this.
It's a hard thing to get right, though. I think. I mean,
well, here's a question then. Because there's as you're saying, the original cartoon series. There's a more kind of maybe slightly more grown-up cartoon series of recent years. I think there's been another one in between, was there? Am I making that up?
There was in the early 2000s.
Yeah. So is the comics and cartoons a better vehicle for He-Man than a live action film?
It definitely lends itself to animation and comics for sure. I think it'll be a challenge to make a film. I think if it's done right, it could be as big as Star Wars, possibly better.
Right, okay.
But I mean,
Okay, you're laying down the gauntlet there.
but I mean, it's a tough thing to get right, I think. And yeah, it could easily just fall apart. You release one film and it just doesn't work, and then.
So that leads us nicely into Masters of the Universe. Not He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, but just Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I was quite disappointed when I first saw it, because as a kid, you're wanting to see all your favourite characters on screen. You get a handful of them. You get Skeletor, obviously, and Evelyn, both which are great, I think. Great representation. Look different from the cartoon. Would have to. The actors, Frank Langella and Meg Forster. Yeah. They were both fantastic in the role, I thought. And then we had Beastman, but he didn't really resemble the cartoon, and he didn't talk, and wasn't great.
Yeah.
We had He-Man, Dolph Lundgren. I think the second feature after Rocky IV.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's somebody that's not an actor being thrown into it. He certainly looked. You can see why he was cast as He-Man. I thought, I can't imagine anyone else. He did a good job, I think, in terms of looking like He-Man.
Yeah, I think as a double whammy with this one, because one, he's not written very well.
No.
And he's kind of sidelined in his own film, effectively. And then Dolph Lundgren is, I'd say, no offence to the guy, but he's just a little bit, he's probably been pushed into the spotlight a little too soon. For basically his second feature, especially when in Rocky IV, he didn't have a lot to say, and it was more about the physicality and the presence of his character.
I must break you.
Yeah.
Is he the main character in this film?
I know. I totally agree with you. Actually, it's he's just another hero, and he's not like the main guy. He doesn't have the superpowers that he has in the comics or the.
Right. So that
cartoon.
that was a question as a fan. You can maybe tell me this in the cartoon, because I actually watched I believe it was the first broadcast episode of the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon. I watched that in preparation.
Really?
For this. I went all out. And obviously I remembered, he's sort of like a superhero with an alter ego.
Yeah.
Prince Adam, he starts off as Prince Adam. We get a little bit of blurb in the title screen of the cartoon about he finds a magic sword and he becomes He-Man, which is about as much background as you need. I did think the cartoon, the first one, might have given us a little more of an origin story, but no. But that's fine.
That's fine.
But he's in this film, he's not Prince Adam. He's just He-Man all the time.
Well, we had 130 episodes of the cartoon, and I believe, Skeletor's trying to get the secrets of Castle Grayskull. He's trying to get into Castle Grayskull and become Master of the Universe. Okay. And he's just a buffoon, and he never succeeds.
In the cartoon?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's a comic villain. He's
sure.
I mean, the cartoon's very funny. I mean, they did a great job with many of the episodes. A lot of them were well written, well performed, and generally quite funny.
Why do I surround myself with fools? Even the robots are smarter than you.
He means you.
I mean both of you, you pathetic pair of pitiful pinheads.
This film is a lot darker. It's starts with Skeletor getting into Castle Grayskull. He's captured the sorceress, and he looks like he's going to become Master of the Universe. Yeah,
that was a question I was going to ask, because it was okay with the cartoon, just kind of, I'm Prince Adam, and then I found a sword, and then, and it just says Skeletor's trying to get into Castle Grayskull, and that's it, and then the episode's just kind of all around that. In the film, it felt like it needed a little bit more background in the build up to this, what's happening, because it sort of takes it for granted that you know what's going on. Which for the release of our film for a slightly wider audience and I would say a slightly older audience, I'd say maybe, I don't know, cartoons maybe 5 to 8 year olds, and this film's maybe going a little bit 10 to 12 and sort of looking for a more even teenage audience.
Yeah, it's a lot darker in tone for sure.
Yeah, but it kind of puts you right in it, and you're like, okay, it assumes that you know where you're at, what's happening, why this is happening, who this person is.
Yeah, so you just have to get into it. in that regard, I guess. I mean, it helps knowing a bit about the characters.
I was going into this, I mean, I had a rough idea of the story and stuff, but you're still kind of like, oh, okay, we're just going right into this now. And we're on Eternia, to start with, the planet where all this takes place in the cartoons.
Yeah.
And I thought the opening shot before the pre-credits shot or something like that, where it gives a little bit of, I guess it's the equivalent of the cartoons, sort of like a pre-blurb sort of thing. Thought that looked good, and I was like, yeah, I want to watch this film.
Yeah.
I want to see this film.
Absolutely. I mean, that was another disappointment of mine, was the fact that most of it was set on Earth. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to see Earth, I want to see Eternia, and you get the glimpse of Eternia at the start, and it's some amazing matte paintings, and you see the sorceress in the eye of Grayskull looking over Eternia. It looks amazing.
That's a film that I wanted to see.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I guess I'm going to presume that it was budgetary limitations that made them say, you know, we need to set this on Earth.
Absolutely. I mean, this was He-Man on a budget,
Right.
and but it was made by Canon Films,
Uh-huh.
and this is probably one of their most expensive films they ever made.
Yeah, it's not cheap by Canon film standards. Yeah. But I guess, I don't know, what was the budget of this?
I think 17 million.
Which sounds like a lot for
quite a lot.
1987.
A first-time director as well.
Yes, aye, Gary Goddard. I don't know much about him.
No. But I have to say, I think he assembled a good team. I mean, everyone in it's there for the film, and they're taking it seriously. And they definitely delivered the best film they could. The stuff we do see on Eternia, like the throne room.
The throne room is the
At the
main
start,
one, yeah.
and at the end, it's a massive set, and it looked good. And these were probably amongst my favourite scenes, especially the scenes with Skeletor, with Frank Langella, who had a hand in the script and scripting his lines.
All right, okay.
I mean, he really got into it.
Where is your strength? Where is it gone? Look at your precious sorceress. An old crone, weak, withering, dying. Are you ready to kneel now, proud warrior?
One thing I've known about his performance is I think he said in the past it was one of his favourite roles.
Really?
Yeah, I believe so. Anyway, he definitely elevates the whole show. Yeah, going back to the sort of Eternia stuff, it's disappointing that we're not on there for, well, the whole film effectively.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're on it for so little time,
Yeah.
and sometimes some of the shots that we see are just kind of barren, rocky, wide shots with a couple of extras kind of placed awkwardly in it. We see a little battle with He-Man. Again, it's quite awkwardly shot or cut or edited or something.
Yeah, it wasn't the best choreographed stuff.
Yeah. So it's not a great introduction to her. Well, I mean, I say that, but I did like the actual introduction shot of He-Man against the Skeletor hologram. I thought that looked pretty good.
Yeah, that's quite iconic, because often in the TV show, cartoon, you'd see Skeletor appear in the sky and stuff.
Okay.
So that was quite
So that's
a
taken
nice
from the
nod.
cartoon.
Yeah, there was quite a lot they did take.
Yeah.
Little bits here and there.
I like that in and of itself, you know. I like that shot in and of itself. We are on Eternia. What's happening exactly?
Well, Skeletor's got into Castle Grayskull.
Right.
I think he needs the power sword, He-Man's sword.
Is that explained? Because I
It's
missed
not
that.
explained very well at all, I have to say.
Yeah, I did notice that then suddenly at the end of the film, he suddenly needs He-Man's sword, which never seemed to kind of come up for the hour and a half before. But so it gets there's quite a lot of like MacGuffin in it, I guess. There's two MacGuffin that's the same. There's this, what do you call it? The cosmic key?
Yeah.
Skeletor's got one, and Gwildor, who's built this, and Gwildor is basically Orko, is he?
Well,
That they couldn't have.
they couldn't have Orko.
Right.
It would have been too complicated.
Because he was a fan favourite, surely.
He was. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Orko, but yeah, you'd expect Orko to be in
To
this.
be in it, yeah. So was he a sort of equivalent of it?
Yeah, it's more manageable. Just the special effects. They couldn't have done it back then. They could have tried to do something, but
Would have been a lot. Okay, fair enough. So he's created this cosmic key which allows you to travel anywhere in the universe?
Yeah,
effectively.
it feels like it, yeah.
Yeah, and so by happenstance they end up on Earth with He-Man, Man-at-Arms. Is his real name Duncan? Did they say that at one point?
They may have, but his real name is Duncan, yeah. And in the film, Tila here is his daughter, though that's not quite right. He's actually not her biological,
Not his biological father.
yeah.
Okay. So the three of them with no battle cat, no Cringer, they end up on Earth with the cosmic key, which they lose in transit. So that sets up the story where they have to find the cosmic key, and it's found by a young Courtney Cox playing Julie, and her boyfriend, can't remember the actor's name, he was in one of the Star Treks, was he?
Okay.
Kevin is his name. And the bulk of the story then shifts to following these two, along with our heroes, on planet Earth trying to find this cosmic key. Yeah. So what did you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, you wanted to be on Eternia, but we're stuck on Earth, so fair enough. As characters, I mean, Julie and Kevin, they were quite interesting. I quite like her story. She lost her parents in a plane crash.
Right, yeah.
So she's got that going on. That leads to a nice scene later on, probably one of my favourite scenes actually, when Evelyn comes to Earth. And she
impersonates her mother.
Yeah.
Did that make Courtney Cox, Julie, sorry, a little bit, she kind of falls for it a little too easily?
Yeah, but she's quite young, maybe a bit naive.
That's true. How old is she in this?
I'm not quite sure. Desperate to believe her mother's
Sure,
still alive.
sure.
I mean, you can imagine that. So that was quite a touching scene. I mean, maybe some of the audience would fall for it if they're young enough, and then you got that twist.
I think that's if it was in the cartoon, it may be that sort of thing. I think it maybe feels a little bit, well, come on, surely you know something's if she just kind of like questioned it a little more or something.
Yeah.
Because Evelyn is basically impersonating her mother who has died to get the cosmic key, which she gives to her. And Kevin, he is a aspiring musician.
Yeah.
So when he finds the cosmic key, he thinks it's a Japanese synthesizer.
Yeah. And of course, his music knowledge saves the day, doesn't it? Because he remembers the tune.
Yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, that's... I did kind of laugh at that. So basically, in order to transport them back to Eternia, Kevin, the rest of the Eternians, I guess they're not very good with music.
Yeah,
they're not very good with memorising a 5-note tune that they've heard, 50 times or something.
Yeah.
But Kevin can. So I guess it's something for him to do.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit, I don't know, Bill and Ted at that point.
It does a bit, yeah.
I guess it's something.
Yeah, it feels like the whole Earth segment's just a detour, just to, keep it cheap and then get back to Eternia at the end.
Yeah, and in terms of cheap, it's a mixed bag though, I think, with the stuff on Earth. Some of it looks good. And given the limitations and the fact that you're trying to make these characters who are, you're not going to take too seriously, but to have them on Earth, it's kind of difficult to kind of make that look not silly.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it does, or it looks a little cheap, or it looks a little like they haven't put too much effort into it. I'm thinking like some of the shots in, I think are they in Julie's house where they have a battle?
Yeah.
And it feels really...
It's quite claustrophobic.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't a set. I think that was a real house, so it was
It
very
definitely
tight.
feels like it, yeah.
I thought it was quite funny seeing these characters crammed into a small house. I thought that's just...
There's like this heroic shot where the 4 characters sort of come in a door and they're all like... It's all well kind of positioned, but then they're just in this like little tiny suburban house. And it's like... and then there's another bit when Beastman's sort of jumping through a kitchen and he's like... He's nearly hitting his head off the roof. It just kind of felt things like that. Maybe just needed a proper set and things like that. If you're gonna do He-Man on Earth and have him running through suburban houses and stuff, you maybe need to kind of just amp it up a little bit.
Nice bit of scoring, I thought, accompanying Skeletor as he arrives.
Oh,
on Earth.
yeah, Bill Conti, is it?
Yeah,
Did the
yeah,
soundtrack.
some nice bits there.
Yeah, and it felt very John Williams-esque at the beginning, with the title credits. Maybe that was the Superman sort of style credits.
Yeah, it had a kind of Superman, Star Wars kind of aspirations.
He's more best known, well, to me anyway, Rocky and The Karate Kid.
That's
would it
right,
be?
yeah, that's all I know him from.
Right.
And these are great scores.
Definitely. Oh, that definitely elevated, as a good soundtrack often can.
Okay, Corgan, don't say I didn't give you a chance. When this is over, you're going to jail. Accessory to assault, resisting arrest, endangering lives, I guarantee you. You and all your buddies, I'm gonna put you away for 850 years. What are you looking at, shorty?
I did write down the actor's name, but he's basically
Strickland
from Back to the Future, playing much and such a similar authoritarian figure. I liked his performance. You know, it was kind of a little bit over the top, and you think he's just going to be like this kind of side character who just kind of comes and goes, but he kind of gets wrapped up into it. And you know, he's definitely reliable as an actor in that role.
Looks like he's going to have a nice life on Eternia at the end.
Yeah.
And look what I got here. I got a castle, I got a view, I got clean air, I got a beautiful woman, huh? Some kind of retirement, huh?
Well, good casting for 1987. What more do you want?
Yeah.
From your sort of hard-edged authoritarian figure. But Mr. Strickland, can't remember his name, but he's still alive.
Yeah.
91.
Wow.
And he's retiring
Fantastic.
in 1987, so he's doing well. Like, yeah.
I, Skeletor, am master of the universe.
I mean, it's always a tricky one to do. I mean, Skeletor. And I think the way they did it, they tried to compromise so it wasn't just a skull, so you could actually see the actor's performance.
We definitely needed that when we've got a bit of an empty hole where He-Man is effectively in terms of his character. It would have been nice to have had a little more back and forth with them on that scene.
The people of Eternia shall see you kneeling to me just before you die.
I'll never kneel to you!
I mean, there's so much missing from this film, and one of them is we don't see Prince Adam, which is, or have the transformation sequence, which is so famous in the cartoon.
Yeah, they kind of half-ass it, I suppose, a little bit at the end, where he picks up the sword and says, I have the power. I don't think he says it quite right for my liking. What do you think?
It wasn't bad.
Is this something about, maybe it's because you've heard the cartoon version so many times.
Yeah. And
It's maybe just kind of comes up a little wanting.
We have no time to lose. By the power of Grayskull!
But anyway, we get into that and we're going to have like a throne room battle. And I was kind of looking forward to that. And I was obviously thinking Star Wars, Empire, or End of Jedi or something. And then, quite literally, the lights go off.
Yeah.
And it takes a nosedive.
Well, that's because the lights nearly did go off. Canon were threatening to shut it down.
Okay.
So they really had a battle to actually get these scenes shot. So they had to really strip it way back. So that's why the lights go off.
So is it actually filmed in the same place? Because it kind of seems to just kind of go. It just kind of had a feeling like we were almost like
somewhere else.
Yeah.
I believe some of it was filmed somewhere else.
Right.
I don't know how much. I actually thought when the lights do go off, we get some nice creative shots.
Obviously, I think under the circumstances, they've obviously done as well as they can do. And I was kind of aware of, that the thumb screws were on in terms of budget. So I did wonder if that was part of the reason why. The quality of some of the filming is up and down. Yeah. And it's definitely on the downside for me by the time we get to that, the final fight, which is an obvious disappointment. Yeah, I guess I can understand under the circumstances that maybe that's what had to happen. Yeah. And it's fair enough. What can you do?
It is, because it's supposed to be a lot more epic. Because that set was massive and it had 2 stories, and only ever got to use one story. Okay. So obviously it had a lot more planned for this battle, and obviously
because that would have lent itself to an Empire Strikes Back style kind of battle, because that's got the same sort of. So it's a pity. Yeah, it's a pity, because I mean that could have really kind of made the film go on a bit more of a high than it does for me anyway.
Yeah, I know it has its moments. Even in the finale, I think there's a few nice moments with Skeletor and his dialogue and.
I think Frank Langella kind of definitely hamming up to good effect. And you want a bit more of that in a He-Man film. I think that's possibly what my takeaway is. It's a little too serious and a little too, some of the humour. They do try a little bit of humour, but things like, when they're our heroes at the start, when they're exploring Earth and they all end up outside a knockoff KFC that just happens to be where Julie works, and she's got the cosmic key, and then they do some stuff with like a bucket of chicken, and it's like, this isn't really working for me.
I wonder why they put the food on these little white sticks.
Those are rib bones.
You mean this used to be an animal?
Mm-hmm.
I was prepared for a lot worse.
Yeah.
I was definitely, having been, not remembering much about it in my initial view in the 1987, and obviously just, you hear stuff about it that was plagued with issues. It's got, it was a box office, I guess, disaster in terms of, recouping its money.
Well, it was, because they had actually started building sets for the second part.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, and of course,
before they'd finished it, or before it was released?
Maybe before it was released, I don't know. And costumes as well. And
wow.
And once it was cancelled, they used these sets and costumes in Cyborg.
The Jean-Claude Van Damme film?
Yeah.
Okay, is there connect? If you, I'd have to watch it again. I haven't seen that for a while, but look forward to He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2 Cyborg in our next review. Wow, okay, I didn't know that tidbit.
But I think at that stage, the budget for the sequel was getting lower and lower, and that's not really what you want.
I think if you're struggling with the first one, then
I think Dolph Lundgren had left as well. He wasn't attached, so it was going to be a new He-Man. And
did he have any thoughts? Do you have any thoughts about it? Has he said much about it over the years?
I think he's possibly didn't think too highly of it early on in his career, but I think he's grown to appreciate, the He-Man fans and what it means to them, and he's got a bit more appreciation for what he's done.
So a disappointment initially, forgotten about for a while. And people are kind of like coming to it a bit more, and I can understand why, because it's not outright terrible. It's not outright unwatchable by any stretch of the imagination. It's not particularly good or anything like that, but
it's up and down a lot, and there's a lot to enjoy in it. I find there's a lot of nice scenes and nice acting bits and some nice visuals. There's always something to appreciate in the film. And I find that a lot of canon films, like the action films, are like that. There's a lot to appreciate, even if the films are terrible. There's a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think, I'm not gonna rush out to buy a copy for myself or anything like that. I just borrowed yours. That'll do.
That's fine.
But will I watch it again? Probably not. Was I okay watching it this time? Yeah, I was okay. I could, it was fine. It had, like you say, it had its moments. I think every time it had, that was nice, and then there would be something that was like, that wasn't quite so nice.
Yeah.
And I'll take that, over a lot of things, I suppose. Not by any means. I'm not gonna lie to you. It wasn't good, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah, I mean,
it wasn't terrible. It was sort of somewhere thingy in the middle there. So yeah,
that's understandable. I pretty much feel the same way. I mean, I probably enjoy watching it more than you. Maybe once every 5 years, possibly.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, how many logs would you give this one?
Oh, jeez, I don't know. I think I would give it 2. I think I'd give it a 2. I know that sounds. I think that sounds fair for a general audience member. You know, I think it's like I think 2 would be fair. I think if you're a He-Man fan, you can get a bit more out of it. And I think looking a little bit and talking to you about some of the, obviously the difficulties that it faced and things like that, you can appreciate. Okay, you know, they were, you know, tied up with a script that wasn't the best because of budgetary reasons, but then they also kind of like maybe didn't utilize He-Man as well as they could have, despite that. You know, there was no reason to not have a slightly better character and stuff.
Yeah.
So I can weigh all these things up and sort of go, yeah, okay. So I would say, I might have been a bit meaner with my score, but I think 2. I think 2. I'll give it 2 logs on the fire, because of all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yourself?
Well, obviously I'm quite a big fan, and yeah, I get a lot of enjoyment from it. I can understand a 2 log rating for sure. But I probably have to go a bit higher just because the nostalgia factor, I guess.
Which wasn't lost on me.
Yeah.
It wasn't lost on me, you know, seeing a film of this ilk. And it kind of like rides that kind of line where it's not a totally cheap canon style sort of film. It's not a budget kind of thing either. And it's got a nice little medium there, I think, that I can appreciate and enjoy, but it's sort of like, you know, a sort of B+ kind of movie sort of thing, you know. Yeah. So yeah, not in terms of rating, but just in terms of, I guess, production or something. But sorry, so you're going to give it?
I would give it a 3.
A 3?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough. As a fan, I can understand that.
Yeah.
I think
it is a bit of a stretch as well, a 3, but
I think it's a higher end. You could.
Yeah.
I think if anyone kind of gave it more than that, I'd have some questions, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can understand it as a 3, and with time passing, and with, as we say, the sort of production issues, the budgetary constraints and all that, yeah, a 2 from me, a 3 from you, seems pretty fair.
That's fair.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Excellent.
Well, that's the end of our episode today, looking at Masters of the Universe. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Good journey!